Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping into a pretty wild idea, one that's backed by some fascinating sources. The idea that English is becoming the most powerful programming language on the entire planet. So, we're diving into a revolution that is totally changing how we build things online. And it all kicks off with this really bold claim. The idea that the language you and I are using right now is becoming the most powerful tool for writing software. Seriously. All right, so this whole revolution, it actually has a name, vibe coding. And the concept is pretty simple, but also kind of mind-blowing. It's this idea that just by describing what you want to build, you can actually, well, build it, bring it to life. Okay, so what does that actually mean, in practice? Well, the term comes from Andrej Karpathy over at OpenAI. And the core idea is pretty simple, really. You let an AI handle all the nitty-gritty, all the messy technical stuff, so that you can just focus on the vibe of what you're trying to create. And Karpathy himself described the feeling perfectly. It's not really coding in the traditional sense. It's more like this super fast back-and-forth conversation with an AI. And what's crazy is that this idea has gone from just a cool observation to a full-on industry shift in like no time at all. Okay, so let's talk about speed. Just how fast is this whole thing moving? Because fast doesn't even begin to cover it. The growth we've seen in the last 6 months has been, well, explosive. It's changing the entire industry from the ground up. And the money? The financial impact is just staggering. I mean, we are seeing brand new companies in this space go from zero to over $100 million in annual revenue in just a few months. It's basically happening overnight. And listen, this is not some niche trend we're talking about. It's becoming absolutely fundamental. Get this, 92% of developers in the US are using these AI tools every single day. And maybe even more telling, a full quarter of startups coming out of Y Combinator, the big deal incubator, they're building their core products this way. That is a massive bet on where things are headed. But really, the most dramatic shift is just in raw productivity. I mean, just think about this for a second. Something that used to take a team of 10 people half a year to build could now be done by one person in under a week. That completely changes the game. It totally redefines what a single person is capable of building. Now, this didn't just pop up out of nowhere, right? It's really the culmination of more than a decade of work. You had the early no-code tools, then GitHub Copilot came along as a kind of AI sidekick. Each of those was a stepping stone, but what's happening now, it feels like we've hit this insane exponential curve. We've reached the point of what you say is what you get. So let's look at who is actually using these new tools and where they are. And the answer might not be what you think. We always hear about Silicon Valley, right? But if you look at the actual data, North America isn't leading this wave, not even close. In fact, if you look at this breakdown, the Asia-Pacific region is the biggest user base by a long shot, and a huge part of that is driven by the massive developer community in India. And this is what's so fascinating. Who are these new power users? Well, they're not just your typical engineers. We're talking about entrepreneurs who have a great idea but no coding background. We're talking about marketing teams who need to spin up a customer database in minutes, designers who want to build a real working prototype. These are people who are just done waiting for someone else to build their vision. Yeah, in fact, the data here it's really striking. The majority of people using these tools today are not developers at all. A full 63% are non-technical professionals. I mean, that just proves it, right? The wall that used to stand between having an idea and actually building it, it's basically gone. And this slide just illustrates that difference in mindset so perfectly. On the left, you've got a developer. They're talking in code speak, TypeScript, React Chart, Next.js. But then on the right, you have the non-developer. They're not worried about the how. They just describe the what. I need a reservation system for a restaurant. That's it. It's all about the goal. But, okay, this incredible speed, this amazing accessibility, it comes with a pretty serious downside. One that's very easy to overlook. Because when you get rid of all the old friction, you might also be getting rid of all the old safety checks. So, what's the catch? There has to be a catch, right? Well, when you can build something in literally minutes, what gets left behind? What gets sacrificed in that race to build? The answer, all too often, is security. And this quote really gets to the heart of the problem. When you're vibing, you're not sweating the details. You're not looking at the code line by line. You're trusting the AI to get it right. And that trust completely bypasses the entire traditional process of, carefully reviewing, testing, and securing your code. And that trust can lead to some really consistent and, frankly, dangerous security holes. For instance, the AI might accidentally expose your secret API keys. That's like leaving the key to your business right under the doormat. Or it could misconfigure permissions, making all your private customer data public to the world. And a really common one, it might hardcode a master password right into the app's code. A huge, huge no-no. So what's the fix? Well, we can't expect every new user to suddenly become a cybersecurity expert overnight. That's just not realistic. So the responsibility really has to shift to the platforms themselves. They need to build in automated guardrails, things like real-time scanning that can spot and block insecure code, making sure the default settings are the most secure ones, and even having a kill switch to shut down a project instantly if a major hole is found. All right, let's wrap this up by looking at the future. Because this isn't just about code, it's about how we work and how our companies are structured. So this whole shift is leading to something people are calling the Great Flattening. What does that mean? Well, as AI starts to handle the heavy lifting of the technical details, those old-school company hierarchies, they start to break down. Suddenly, the most valuable skill isn't how well you can code, but how good your ideas are. It's all about creative and strategic vision. And you can see that skills evolution right here. It's less about knowing the specific syntax of a programming language and way more about being able to come up with great ideas and, well, being a good manager for your AI partner. It's about orchestrating, not just executing. So, where is all this headed? What's the end game? Well, experts kind of see three possible paths. You've got the super optimistic one, where vibe coding just takes over everything. Then there's the more conservative take, where it's mainly used for prototypes and fun projects. But the most likely scenario? It's probably somewhere in the middle. AI assistance just becomes a standard, totally normal, maybe even invisible part of every single development tool out there. So the tools are here, and they are getting more accessible every single day. The technical walls that used to stop millions of people from building their ideas are just crumbling, which really leaves us all with one final thought, one final question. If your imagination is the only thing holding you back, what are you going to build?